Hey, Irving Church, welcome back to Gather Online. It's Wednesday. I'm excited because we have just a real treat for you today. We have a special guest speaker. Luke is out, and today we have the one and only Dallas Willard going to be sharing with us this morning. And here he is. Hey, say hi, Dallas. Awesome. Thanks, Dallas. We can't wait to hear your lesson. Here we go.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Gather Online. This is week 8, week 9, something like that. Wow, we've been doing this for a while now. Thanks for everybody who's been participating with us. Let me just remind you of where we got started with this particular series of talks we're doing. I guess it's 4 weeks ago. This is the 5th talk. I began talking about the church. I wanted to respond to this idea that's floating around the internet that you can't cancel the church, and we want to talk about what it means to actually be the church, because it's important to recognize that the church is a group that assembles, and the assembly is essential to being the church. We started there, and then we started looking more broadly at the kind of things the church does, what it means to be the church in terms of our activities. Then we paused to say, what else is it? Besides just doing things, what else is there? And we let Dallas Willard help us see that there are deeper realities that have to be present while you're doing these things. You have to be actually walking with Christ. The presence of Christ is where the true church is. Regardless of what's happening, you can't just say that's the church. You have to say that's happening with Christ being present. And we paused there and looked at his distinction between vessels and treasure, actually drawing on the Apostle Paul, but applying it more broadly to the church, saying some things are vessels in which the treasure is contained, and we cannot get confused about which is which. We have to always remember that the treasure is our business. The treasure is what we're centered upon in the church. We did that 2 weeks ago. Last week we expanded on that, looking at Romans chapter 2. And today I want to finish up talking about the vessel-treasure distinction, letting Dallas Willard expand his thoughts for us a little bit more. We were reading, the last time we looked at his thoughts, we were in The Great Omission. This week I'm going to read to you from this book, The Renovation of the Heart, where he goes a little bit more into detail about what it means, or about this distinction between the vessel and the treasure, and then, kind of finishing up there and moving into what actually should characterize our assemblies. What should our atmosphere be when we're together? So we'll let Dallas talk to us for a little bit today. I know it may be a little bit strange to have somebody to read to you, but this is worth reading. Trust me. I hope you'll settle in and just hear what Dallas has to say here. So, if I can find the place where I'm going to start. Okay, so he's talking about spiritual formation in the local congregation. And here's what he says. What characterizes most of our local congregations, whether big or little in size, is simple distraction. The oft-noted failures, and I think here he would be including at least the things we talked about last week, moral failures that show up so often among Christian leaders. The oft-noted failures of many kinds that show up within them and around them, around these congregations, are not the fundamental problem of church life today. They are much more a result than a cause. Now you might ask yourself, I'm going to be skipping through here some. You might ask yourself, why does the New Testament say nothing about all those matters to which the usual congregation today devotes almost all its thought and effort? Answer, because those matters are not primary and will take care of themselves with little attention whenever what is primary is appropriately cared for. Of course, we do not think we are distracted. The things we are investing our efforts in seem absolutely primary. These are usually things that make up being a good and proper whatever, Protestant, Catholic, Anglican, or just a good Christian is understood in the particular place. But the people on location have actually mistaken the vessel for the treasure. And that's what we talked about 2 weeks ago. That's where we read Dallas saying 2 weeks ago. Now I give some examples of what those kind of things are. So, what kind of clothes should people wear to meetings? And should they stand still when they sing? And what should they sing? Should there be a prayer ministry? And should it be part of the service, after the service, or at a different service? Should we be seeker friendly, or whatever the alternatives are? Should we permit miracles to happen in our services, or just sound teaching? How should the Lord's Supper be done? Skipping down. What should our creed be? And should we have one? What about those people who use incense, or who don't, or who wear unusual clothes to do the ministerial things, or who don't, and on and on. Now, please note, I am not saying that such things are of no importance. That's an important point there, because sometimes you start to say, like this is what we talked about last week, you start to try to evaluate and to identify what's primary, and people act like, well, you don't care about the Bible. The Bible says something about that. No, but we have to identify what's most important in the Scriptures. That's what Dallas is getting at here. And we emphasize those things that are most important, and we allow disagreement on the things that are less important. This is what he says. I'm not saying these things are of no importance, though for some of them it is a close call. I'm saying two things. One is that they are not the starting points or the essential and foundational matters. And secondly, if you make them out to be essential or even very important, even if you do so only practically, in the sense of spending most of your time on them, the local congregation will make little or no progress in terms of the spiritual formation of those in regular attendance. These vessel matters do not bring anyone into Christ likeness, whichever side of them one stands on. That is a proven fact of life. Look and see. And then he goes into a section where he talks about this is how you end up with mean and angry Christians. You ever know any of them? People who are so angry, so mean to people. And what Willard says is that's because they've mistaken what's really important. And they've learned to be Christian without being Christ-like. Listen to this. Christians are routinely taught by example and word that it is more important to be right, always in terms of their beloved vessel or tradition, than it is to be Christ-like. In fact, being right licenses you to be mean, and indeed requires you to be mean. See, I imagine that most of you can immediately identify with the kind of things he's saying because you have experienced this. You know that you've encountered people and you've thought they represented the church, they represented Christ to you, and you've wondered, why are they so mean? This is just broad Christian experience. And it's because of the broad problem, this just deep, intractable problem of placing all our emphasis on the wrong things. And we don't have Christ in those things. We have our vessels, and we've made our vessels the treasure. Okay, so let's just skip forward a little bit here. And this is where Dallas goes on to say that the presence of God in the midst of the church is the only sure mark of the true ecclesia. Remember that term, the church. So here's his more positive definition of what to expect in the church. So what should we expect of a local congregation of disciples of Jesus? If we come at it from the viewpoint of New Testament realities and the highest ideals of historic Christianity, listen to this, we should expect it to be a place where divine life and power is manifestly present to glorify God and meet the needs of repentant human beings. This would imply an atmosphere of honesty, openness, indiscriminate acceptance of all, supernatural caring, with utter admiration for and confidence in Jesus. I just want to write these things on the board. This is what we should expect in our church services when we gather. We should expect divine life and power. And this is just really reiterating what we've been saying all along. That's the treasure. It's the life of Christ in us. And that should be present then. That treasure should be present when we gather together as a church. We should expect honesty and openness. I'm just going to abbreviate. And you know you can actually be honest without being open. You just have to learn to choose what you're talking about. But we need honesty and openness. We need to be able to both speak the truth and to be open with each other, to be transparent, to not pretend with each other in our assemblies. He says there will be indiscriminate acceptance. Now, understand, he's already said this is for repentant human beings. It's not that we accept every behavior and say everything's okay, but there should be a sense that for people who walk into the services of the church, the gatherings of the church, there should be a pervasive sense, a almost palpable sense that there is no condemnation here. And people can come in here and know they're in a judgment-free zone. There should be that kind of acceptance. Let's see, what does he say? There should be supernatural caring. That's just love. Love that comes from Christ and that is different than anybody can get anywhere else. Love that goes beyond just niceties, just speaking to people and saying, I'll ask you how you're doing and go on my way. But love that really cares and people can tell that they care. And that then goes into the way we're acting, the way we're sharing and giving and taking care of each other. And then finally, the fifth one here is admiration. I'm just lumping these together. Admiration for and confidence in Jesus. And that's what grounds us. Everything's about Him. He sets the tone for everything, and we are people present. And it's obvious to anyone who sees us that we admire Him, we trust Him, and we have great confidence that He's in charge and He'll take care of things. That's what people should experience when the church gathers. All right, now finally, we want to look at two things that should not be present in our gatherings. And this will be the last thing that we let Dallas teach us today. One is performance. And alongside that, accompanying that, is evaluation. Performance and evaluation. Listen to this. Performance is where we try to make an impression rather than just be what we are. That goes back to being honest and open. The element of performance would be absent in the Trinitarian gathering, as would constant solicitude concerning how did the service go. God is the primary agent in the gathering. The truth is, from the only point of view that matters, God's, it is very likely no human knows how the service went. And in any case, that cannot be judged by reading overt responses of the attendees. When we gather in our meetings, we do not come to see how the speaker and other leaders do. We are not checking their performance. We come to encounter the Trinitarian presence and to hold them up within it. That is our expectation. In Paul's language, he says, we're determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. We expect to find Christ in others, and that is all we are looking for. Now, is that how you come to church? Expecting to find Christ in others? Expecting to find Christ in the speakers? Expecting to find Christ in the leaders? Expecting to find Christ in those who are speaking to you? We don't worship or find service or impeccable teaching or fine-looking people. Far too often we approach our gathering together all prepared to major on minors. Our attitude is captured by the children's rhyme, "Pussycat, pussycat, where have you been? I've been to London to see the great Queen. Pussycat, pussycat, what saw you there? I saw a wee mouse under her chair." And then Dallas comments, "Why consider the wee mouse when your eyes could be on the Queen, whom supposedly you went to see anyway?" And we should all pause and think, what are we considering in our gatherings? Have we come to see the great King? Have we come to witness the God of the universe? Or have we come to see ourselves, to have ourselves honored in some way, to get our needs met in some way? And that gets back to the question really of who are we and what is the aim of our life? Because if I am a cat, it may be that the most important thing in a room is a mouse to me. No matter who is there, no matter what kind of royalty is present. But that's about who I am, you see. Who am I when I come to the gathering of the church? Am I a person whose life centers upon, revolves around the presence of the risen and living Lord Jesus Christ. That's who we want to be, and that's what we want to bring to church. Until next time, God bless you.